It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Tuesday, April 1st. I'm Wendy Corr, bringing you headlines from the Cowboy State Daily newsroom, brought to you by the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. From 6 to 10 a.m., Monday through Friday, we bring you news, weather, sports, and in-depth interviews with newsmakers from across Wyoming. And this week, we've got a fantastic guest host, Shireen Herrera, who will keep the conversation lively. Just click on the Cowboy State Daily homepage to join in. Wyoming may have lost a legend with the death of former U.S. Senator Al Simpson, but the 6'7" man who stood larger than life is surely not forgotten. Simpson died March 14th at the age of 93. On Monday, Simpson's family and friends gathered at Christ Episcopal Church in Cody for his funeral service, the final event in a series of honors that started at the state capitol last week. Cowboy State Daily's Leo Wolfson was at the service.
What really struck me was kind of the range of emotions that we saw, everything from laughs, tears, points of inspiration, uplifting things, little sad anecdotes, fascinating stories, hilarious one-liners and quips. I found Pete Simpson, Al's brother's speech, probably the most emotional, kind of that brotherly connection, and it brought me to tears for sure, especially when he said that, I'll see you soon. I think that was extremely moving. I think it just truly encompassed his life, and it was a wonderful send-off.
In addition to Simpson's family, around 150 of his closest friends were also in the audience, including U.S. Senators John Barrasso and Cynthia Lummis, Governor Mark Gordon, Yellowstone National Park Superintendent Cam Shawley, and University of Wyoming President Ed Seidel. Country music star Clint Black was also in attendance and sang a song in Simpson's honor. 18-year-old biotech student Regan Schaefer checked in with his mother, Stephanie, on Sunday, March 23rd at around 7 p.m. and told her he was in for the night. But the young man's plans changed. Just a few hours later, Schaefer was killed in a tragic accident 30 miles away from his apartment in Laramie, helping a stranded motorist on Highway 130. Cowboy State Daily's David Madison spoke to Schaefer's family about the details surrounding the young man's death.
According to what the Highway Patrol told the family, Regan was out on this road at 10:30 at night on a Sunday, helping another 18-year-old who had crashed their car and was stuck perpendicular, blocking one lane of traffic, when a 50-something-year-old motorist came upon the scene and tragically crashed into the crash site. And so Regan was standing right there and took the blow and died instantly. The other 18-year-old was reportedly taken to the hospital as well. The driver of the car who came upon the scene apparently was not injured, but it's a really sad situation. In talking to the family, it was in keeping with Regan's character. He was always looking to lend a hand. It was part of his personality to go out of his way for people he just met.
The Wyoming Highway Patrol has not released details about the incident and the drivers involved, but the family was told it's being investigated as two separate crashes. Well, the brother of a man who died last summer after shooting at National Park Service rangers in Yellowstone National Park is asking a judge not to let the government keep all the man's things. 28-year-old Lucas Fussner died in a shootout the morning of July 4th in Canyon Village after taking a hostage for several hours, making statements about committing a mass shooting, then shooting a park ranger in the foot and firing at others. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that Fussner's possessions were part of a plot to commit mass violence. That's what the U.S. Attorney's Office says, and that allows the government to take possession of them.
Over time, the United States has decided that if your property is involved in a crime, the government can seize your property, but other people with a potential claim on it can also argue about that in court, whether the government should have it. So Lucas Fussner's brother, Noah, is asking the court, don't let the federal government take all his stuff. We shared a lot of this stuff. We shared the car that he traded in to get this car, and I helped him build his computer. Noah is contesting some of the particulars too, where the government is saying this car is part of the crime because it's a getaway car, it's backed in. And Noah is saying, well, no, it's parked way across the parking lot.
Noah Fussner hopes the guns connected to the shootout will be sold to offer restitution to the park ranger who was shot. The Powell Police Department is requesting the public's help in locating a local man who's been missing for nearly a week. 52-year-old Clint White was last seen on surveillance video leaving his home Wednesday, March 26th, just before 2 a.m. Cowboy State Daily's Jen Coker spoke with the Powell police chief who's been coordinating with White's family.
The police chief met with the family Monday morning to discuss their next steps. And at this point, the police chief said they've kind of exhausted what they could do in terms of forensics as far as trying to ping his devices, because he had his location turned off on his devices. And that would be at least a cell phone, maybe an iPad that he probably had with him. He was seen on video surveillance leaving his home with a blanket and a generator. The family is monitoring his financial transactions, and so far he hasn't made any, but they're closely monitoring his accounts.
White's family, in coordination with local faith groups, are actively searching for him outside the Powell City area. And now let's take a look at today's weather with Cowboy State Daily meteorologist Don Day.
Cool and wet weather will be found over a lot of Wyoming today, tonight, and into Wednesday. A disorganized but moist storm system is moving through, kind of coming through in pieces. Overnight and early this morning, we have had some areas of rain and wet snow, and off and on, that'll be the case through tonight and into Wednesday. And there's another little system Wednesday afternoon into Thursday that could scatter rain and snow across the state. Now, these are not major storm systems, so we don't expect anybody to get a ton of precipitation, but you have these storms up, it's going to be cool and damp over most of the state for the next 4 days.
You can get Don's full forecast on the Cowboy State Daily website. I'll be back in just 15 seconds with more news.
We're a company seeking to develop a rare earth element mine outside of Wheatland, Wyoming. Rare earth elements are magnet metals, an important industrial input in everything from your cell phone to an F-35 fighter jet. We're trying to bring a domestic supply online so that our country doesn't have to rely on China. Please visit our website at AmericanRareEarths.com.
Well, 2 men suspected of hacking into at least 3 Wyoming ATMs in mid-March are in custody in the Denver jail waiting for extradition. 34-year-old Yohandri Ramirez and 27-year-old Yaniker Fernandez each face up to 70 years in prison if convicted of multiple felonies against them in Bighorn County. That includes felony theft, hacking, and conspiracy to commit theft. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that the pair used sophisticated hacking tools to trick ATMs in Lovell, Grable, and Thermopolis to spit out a total of about $54,200 on March 15th and 16th.
The affidavit describes it as a software manipulation, which means that they're actually telling the computer to do things, in this case, to spit out several thousands of dollars of cash, according to court documents. And so this spree is said to have started in Montana, and then they sort of wound down into Wyoming before ultimately 2 of them, not all of them, but 2 of them were found in Denver.
Grable Police Chief Travis Davis said at least 2 more suspects were involved, although at this juncture he knew of just 2 in custody. Authorities are looking for others. Well, observers watching Yellowstone National Park's Old Faithful webcam got quite the spectacle on Monday afternoon. A bison herd decided that a wandering grizzly got too close for comfort and sent it scurrying through the snow. Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi reports that grizzlies might be the apex predators of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, but bison are bigger.
Grizzlies routinely walk through bison herds. It's not that big of a thing. You can see it happen all the time, but it only takes one bison with a chip on its shoulder to decide that the bear is threatening or that it's not moving fast enough. So in this incident, a grizzly, presumably a male grizzly, because those are the ones that are awake and active at this time of year, wandered through a bison herd in the Upper Geyser Basin at Old Faithful, and the bison seemed like they were just going to let it pass. But before you knew it, they had joined together, and you had about 20 bison chasing after a grizzly, and the grizzly took the hint and ran off.
It was the latest amazing wildlife moment captured on the Old Faithful webcam for its international audience. A recording of the entire incident was posted on the Geyser Times dashboard as one of the day's highlights. Well, Plenty Unlimited received what was at the time Wyoming's largest ever economic development grant to build what would have been the world's largest vertical farming research center in Laramie. But now the company has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean reports that the ambitious plans for its 60,000 square foot Project Jupiter are on indefinite hold.
The company wasn't willing to talk really about what went on or what caused the bankruptcy, but I think in just looking at some of the moves that the company made, it just seemed like they were trying to do an awful lot quickly. In 2017, they purchased the Bright Agritech company. It was a startup by a University of Wyoming student, Nate Story. And his vision really was, how can we grow more food? One theory is growing it indoors, vertical farming. That way it's maximizing space. It's providing ideal conditions for the plant and boosting yields. Plenty bought Story's startup in 2017. It raised about $200 million in capital at the time and announced a big vertical farming facility in Seattle, Washington. 300 farms in China, a couple of farms in Japan, and then 2 farms in California.
A company spokeswoman told Cowboy State Daily on Monday morning that the business does plan to keep 2 locations as part of its reorganization. That includes the already existing Wyoming Plant Science Research and Development Facility in Laramie. And sometimes the only way to spread awareness about how to schedule VIN inspections is to make VIN inspections great again. That's the punchline behind the Sunday morning video release by the Laramie County Sheriff's Office, in which a deputy who could almost kind of pass for President Donald Trump gives locals a speech on how to arrange vehicle identification number or VIN inspections with sheriff's personnel. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland spoke to Sheriff Brian Kozak about this unconventional public service announcement.
The Laramie County Sheriff's Office is known for shenanigans, but there's a rationale behind this one. They wanted to do a video telling people, like, here's how to do a VIN inspection, here's how not to, here's why you should. They're like, if we just do an informational video, no one's going to watch it. So we have to call in Deputy Drew Harrison, who does a mad Trump impersonation, and he's going to do a presidential announcement about VIN inspections. It was over the top. It was funny.
And as it turns out, it's also a way to get a statewide news outlet to write about VIN inspections. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the daily newsletter button on cowboystatedaily.com. And you can watch this newscast every day by clicking subscribe on our YouTube channel or listen to us on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.